My studio is an absolute tip today. It is covered in paintings that I've just varnished and boxes for framing because I have an exhibition coming up next week. I didn't realise how soon that was. And that is not a lot of time to get things done. I've decided I'm going to take you through my entire exhibition prep from start to finish. And to do that, there's a few things we're going to need to do. First thing we're going to do is make a painting. So to do that, we've got to plan it, paint it, varnish it, and frame it. So I'm going old school today with a pen and paper. I usually do it on my iPad, but I've got a pretty good idea of what I want to do for this piece. Just going to try and do a quick sketch of what I want. I know that it is a 100 centimetres by 30 centimetres. Bless me. Ugh. I know it's a 100 centimetre by a 30 centimetre canvas that I want to fill, and I've got a pretty good idea of the composition that I want. Me and Amber did a painting nearly a year ago now actually, for the release of David Attenborough's Frozen Planet 2. We were contacted by the BBC and they commissioned us to do a piece as part of their advertising for that BBC documentary, which was really cool. And we decided to paint some polar bears. And since then, I've wanted to do my own polar bear piece. So I think that's what I'm going to do with this long, thin piece that I am planning to do for this exhibition. The reason that I'm doing it in the pen is just because I want it to be super simple. I don't want to be worrying about highlight shading. I'm just doing a little compositional piece. I want a couple of polar bears. I think I'm going to do 3 again, just because I like that unevenness of 3. It gives you a little bit more to look at. It tells you a little bit more of a story. Because that's one thing that I'm trying to improve with my paintings is I don't just want a nice painting, I want the painting to tell a story. I want there to be something about the piece that you look at it and you don't just go, oh, that's nice. I want people to look at it and sort of understand and come up with a narrative for what's going on. I don't necessarily want my own narrative forced on people, but I want people to come up with their own. So I've done. That's it, that's my plan. Sometimes you have pieces that you've just got such a good idea that you know what you want to do, that you can just jump straight in, come up with a quick plan, just get your ideas on paper really quick, and you're really happy with how it looks. Other times it takes hours, sometimes even days to get pieces that you're happy with. But for this one, I really like this composition. I love the panoramic compositions. And I like the story that I can potentially tell with this. We've got a mother bear, a cub down here, and a cub down here. And I want these 2 cubs looking at each other, or maybe this cub looking back as if to say, come on, hurry up, it's running ahead and everyone's been too slow. We've got the mother in the back, looking after the 2 cubs, and just a whole little bit of family dynamic. I'm not too sure on the colour scheme yet, but we will come to that when I start painting. I'm thinking, though, just from the top of my head, that I don't want a normal, just realistic-y, snowy whitey painting. I want something a little bit different with this one. So I am thinking I might use warm colours, which you wouldn't usually associate with polar bears. They are usually these cold Arctic, or Antarctic, can't remember which one, probably should know, I'm a biologist. But you associate them with these cold colours, these wintry colours, and I don't want to do that. I want to mix it up a bit, so I think I'm going to go with warm colours, like oranges, yellows, browns, really bright, vibrant warmth, carried throughout the entire painting. It is day 2 on this painting now, and we're actually going to get stuck into some paints. I've decided that this is going to be done in acrylics, mainly because my exhibition's next week, and I cannot wait for oils to dry, so we're going to do this one in acrylics. I'm starting off this piece by painting the background. I'm using a large flat brush and I'm sticking to those warm orange colours that I'd decided on. I usually start off my paintings almost as simple abstracts, to make sure that I've got a pleasing composition before I start blocking in any of the shapes or details. For smooth blended backgrounds in acrylics, it usually takes more than one layer. I do have a separate video which I'll put in the description to show all of the different techniques that I use for blending acrylics. I want a straight horizon line, so I just mark off the middle of the canvas and then just use some masking tape to get that sharp, solid horizon line. For the foreground, I need to mix up some new colours, and I try and keep my colour palette very consistent throughout a painting. I can just really focus on the basic shapes and simple colour schemes. I don't need too much detail for these icebergs and the ice that the polar bears are going to be walking on. The polar bears themselves is where all of that detail is going to be. I want them backlit, so I start with a lighter opaque colour, and then it's the same process as with all of my paintings. It's create a block in first. I'm just looking at the basic colours and the basic shapes for each of the polar bears. The reflections are really simple. I'm just keeping them very blurred, and I'm just using the colours that I used in the polar bear and just putting them down onto that water in horizontal strokes to almost imitate ripples and waves. A lot of the time people think polar bears are white, and they are, but painting white fur isn't actually about using white paint. There are so many colours that get reflected in white fur, and I do actually have a video that you can check out about painting white fur, and I will leave a link in the description to that as well. The polar bears that I'm painting here, because my colour scheme is very orange, their fur is going to get glazed over with some orange paint. There will actually be a full video of this painting on my Patreon channel in a few months' time, where I go through the exact process from start to finish of how I created this painting. Okay, so we've finished the painting, but there's a couple of things that I forgot to add to my to-do list. I always photograph my pictures before I varnish them because the glare can sometimes get in the way. If you'd like to learn a little bit about what I use for my photography setup, I've created a video for this as well, so I'll leave a link to that in the description too. One thing that I always do when I'm painting, or forget to do I should say, is paint the sides. Always paint the sides of your work. It doesn't matter if it's just for you or you're framing it and it's sort of not being covered. Just paint them. Makes it so much easier. Do it right at the start. Makes it so much easier than what I'm going to have to do now, which is paint them at the end. The frame that I want for this piece is going to be black, so I'm going to paint the sides black. If you're planning on doing a piece and it's not going to be put into a frame, then it's probably a good idea to continue the colours of the piece onto the sides of the frame. But for this one, black frame, black sides. You don't really need to focus on me here. Instead, look at Charlie pottering about in the background. Much cuter, much more important. Okay, we've got to let that dry now, and then we've got to varnish it. For my acrylics, my absolute favourite varnish is this clear gloss varnish by Darla Rowney. I love it, it's brilliant, it has such a high gloss finish, and yeah, it's one of my favourites. I'll leave a link to that in the description too. So I've just finished varnishing it, and while I wait for that to dry, I'm going to make a start on building the frame. Because I've got so many frames, there are 3 huge boxes that I need to transport from my car to my studio. Well, I've got all the boxes in the studio. I now just need to sort through about 40 frames to find the right one. Yay! There's like 30 frames in here. I've got 16 pictures and some of them have slips which have also got to be put together. So I'm just gonna make a start and hopefully I find it fast. I was going to work by process of elimination. It's quite a long picture, so I'm hoping it's going to be in the big box, but who knows, because they're all big boxes. I get my frames from Lion Chop Service, and then I build them myself. just the one that I use. I'm sure there's loads out there. And now they're all taped together. Just trying to be very careful, I don't want to scratch any of the wood. But I mean, it's definitely not that one. I tell you that right now. It is also not that one. What frame is that? Oh yeah, no. Right, it is going to be one of these two. I've now got to figure out which one it is. Hopefully they have been, oh they have, they've been labelled, which is brilliant for me. Okay, there is the frame. Just going to check it over. Just look for any dents or anything that I can see straight away. And then let's just open it up. Those two pieces look okay. Always check your frames. And those two look okay as well. Right, let's get this cleared up, put the other frames back in the bubble wrap, and then start framing. There might be some framers watching this video going, oh my god, what's he doing? That's not how you frame a painting. I don't have an underpinner, so I cannot underpin my frames. This is just how I do it. This isn't a how-to guide on how to frame. This is just my process. What I do, put my frame in the clamps, then I position it, and I glue it with some PVA wood glue just to keep it secure. Then I tighten the clamps, make sure everything's level, and yeah, leave it for a few hours to a few days. I'm back in the studio. It's been a few hours now, and here it is. It's dry. I'm just going to take it off the clamp. The frame's dry. The varnish is dry. The only thing left to do is frame them. I am absolutely over the moon with how this piece turned out. I think the frame complements the polar bears and the painting so well. I love these long, thin, panoramic compositions. So there you have it, the finished painting, along with a couple of others that I have yet to frame. I am dancing around my studio a bit at the minute because it is a bit of a tip still, but we're making progress with the frames. There's one down there just in the clamps getting done. Hopefully I will be finished in time. The exhibition is a week away. As I mentioned, the polar bear video will be up on my Patreon soon. Depending on when you're watching this video, obviously, it might be up now. If you'd like a little bit of a preview of my Patreon channel, then why not check out this video here about my techniques for painting water. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.